My name's Alex Murray. I'm a politics student in my 4th year, so I've been on campus here for a fair while. And how I kind of got involved in the student occupation and the general protest move against tuition fees was that last academic year at least, in the October, I was elected to Ethics and Environmental Officer, so onto the Union Council, the democratic structure of Kent Union. And at my very first meeting, very first Union Council meeting, I sat through that, kind of got to know how everything operates, and at the very end of that someone stood up and said that an occupation was going to begin from that point, and ended up being the final occupation running after those initial protests in the country. So it was the evening of, I believe it was December the 8th, after the Union Council meeting had happened and actually been put off for 1 week because of the snow that was happening at the time. Obviously this is the Senate building just behind me, and that became our home for kind of 28 days. Well, this was obviously the largest room, and so when it came to the beginning of the occupation and when we had the most people before access was limited, this is where we would usually kind of congregate, especially before we got the seminar room downstairs. Other times we organised guest lectures. We would use the space for discussions. A few seminars were even held here. Visual anthropology, they came and they did some interviews and talks with us. And this was the original site of a teach-in as well, before the occupation began. We used it as a study space. There was a study space set up, a kind of arts and crafts space set up so that we could kind of keep getting the word out by putting materials around about campus. When it got to the access being limited, the heating was turned off, and we would use this space eventually just for a fridge because it was cold enough that you could store safely milk and butter. We had all the kind of food laid out about here, and all the different donations that we get, which were key essentially to us kind of being able to keep this as a sustainable occupation because we weren't allowed to get outside. We would also use the space for exercise, different things like that. We would communicate with different universities and their occupations beforehand, holding Skype calls and things like that, and generally having conversations over the phone and things. The university allowed us to stay. They tried to make concessions in terms of talking to us and things like that, and I think that was really what helped. What helped us, certainly, was that there was all these other different occupations going on, learning from them, getting advice from them. NCAFCA helped in terms of specific advice, and help from lawyers who had supported other occupations and things as well. Not just from this wave of occupations, but from previous ones, whether that was about the Palestinian occupations and things like that as well. I'd say there was a real community feel to it. It did draw students together. You saw people from all sorts of diverse backgrounds coming in, getting involved, not just the kind of union clique. It wasn't just about protest for the sake of it. It was about leaving a message, about using our time here to make as big an impact as possible, but not to destroy possible relationships and structures that we could use later on.